Welcome everyone to the Progressive American. As always, I'm your host, Connor Kelly. We have a few major stories to talk about here today. A portion of them relate to Trump, unfortunately, due to a lot of revelations about his administration and legal troubles. But there are a lot of issues involving foreign affairs as well that must first be addressed. Namely, the violence in Israel and its intensity, as well as the ceasefire that came with it. On Thursday, CNN reported that an official ceasefire had been negotiated between Hamas and Israel. The end to the violent conflict came after 11 days of bombing, rockets, and violent displacement overtook the Gaza Strip after riots broke out at Al-Aqsa Mosque. The violence also was partially due to the forceful expulsion of Palestinian tenants in Sheikh Jarrah in East Jerusalem. The ceasefire comes as a massive relief for the people who have been subjected to intense violence. However, it is unlikely to undo the destruction that Palestinians had endured during those harrowing 11 days. The New York Times reported that more than 72,000 Palestinians were forced from their homes due to the bombings. Even with the new ceasefire, the conflict still brews among the people. Israeli police raided the Al-Aqsa Mosque on Friday, the second raid on the mosque this month. The Palestinian Authority condemned the attack, calling it, quote, an incursion by Israeli police. In their statement, the Palestinian Authority said that, quote, the Israeli government, by continuing its policy of provocation, attacks, and incursions, is challenging international efforts that have been made to reach a calm and stop the violence and escalation in Jerusalem and the occupied Palestinian territories and to stop the aggression on Gaza, end quote. While thankfully nobody died in this raid, CNN has reported that 20 people were injured in the fighting, the start of which is not entirely clear, but so far Israeli police maintain that the raid was a reaction to a riot. Still, the widespread violence is eliciting condemnation from the international community, with the International Criminal Court calling for investigations into what they call, quote, the attacks on civilian populations and other gross violations of human rights, end quote. Meanwhile, the Biden administration plans to invest in the Gaza Strip and help to repair the region's infrastructure, according to the New York Times. However, that aid is partially dependent upon Hamas abandoning its rocket program, although that is not set in stone. I'd like to say that I'm thankful to God that some semblance of peace has been established. People have lost their homes, their lives, and their sense of peace. Unfortunately, it seems like much of the opposition to Israel has not taken hold in the Democratic leadership, specifically the president. Under Biden, the U.S. blocked the United Nations Security Council from passing a resolution calling for a ceasefire, which could have put the Israeli government in a difficult position with the international community to cease its bombings. The only one that is protecting Israel from facing a serious investigation into its military operations is the United States. Now, I have no problem with Biden demanding an end to Hamas's rocket programs. That seems like an expected demand. But that must come with concessions from the Israelis. Namely, they need to stop violating the property rights of Palestinians, especially in territory that Israel itself does not claim. We can't de-radicalize the people in Gaza so long as they remain under constant threat by the Israeli military and bombers and have to constantly worry about whether or not their house is going to be demolished. Some may argue that Hamas has superseded the Palestinian Authority and therefore Israel has no choice but to continue its operations. But the problem is that Hamas retains its power through the fears that many Palestinians have about Israel. If you want to see an end to Hamas's control, you have to give the people of Palestine a reason not to see Hamas as appealing, and that comes with providing the people of Palestine a sense of peace. That means ending the mass removal of Palestinians from their homes and ensuring that diplomacy goes forward. America has a role to play in it, but only if it is willing to do so. Turning to American domestic politics, it appears that the former president's past has come back to haunt him. On Wednesday, the Washington Post reported that New York Attorney General Letitia James is now investigating the Trump Organization, his charity, as a criminal investigation. In a statement, a spokesperson for the Attorney General said that, quote, we have informed the Trump Organization that our investigation into the company is no longer purely civil in nature. We are now actively investigating the Trump Organization in a criminal capacity along with the Manhattan DA. We have no additional comment at this time, end quote. This issue has been ongoing since 2018, which examined whether or not Trump and his affiliates downplayed the value of their properties to gain tax benefits, all the while inflating the assets of these businesses for their benefit. So far, investigators have interviewed Eric Trump and Alan Weisselberg, the chief financial officer at the Trump Organization. Investigators have also targeted Steve Bannon, who was a former Trump advisor and infamous anti-immigrant propagandist. Trump was also forced to turn over 8 years' worth of tax returns to investigators in a famous Supreme Court ruling. In other words, Trump is not as safe as he once was. The fact that it took 2 years is amazing to me. Trump regularly disregarded conventions against corruption, and his cabinet was just an exercise in perpetual nepotism. He gave Ivanka a position despite her having no experience in government, allowing her and Jared to make millions. The Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington reported that Jared Kushner and Ivanka made anywhere between $100 and $640 million thanks to their position in the Trump White House. Now, thanks to the 2020 election, Trump can no longer ignore subpoenas by prosecutors and federal investigators. He can no longer guarantee his immunity that he once enjoyed, and with it, he faces accountability. Now, I would recommend that all of you keep an eye on this case because it will likely reveal things about Trump that are fundamentally contradictory to who he claimed to be. It's about time we got to look behind the curtain into just who Donald Trump really is and how he conducts his business. I look forward to seeing what prosecutors turn up. In a similar story of corruption, Republican leadership in the House and the Senate is souring on the January 6th Commission. This commission was started as a bipartisan attempt to investigate how the infamous attacks on the Capitol were carried out and how they began. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, a Republican, released a statement mere minutes before the hearing on the commission was meant to start. Said statement announced that McCarthy had reversed his position and was no longer in favor of the commission. McConnell soon made the same announcement, joining McCarthy by arguing that it was, quote, a slanted and unbalanced proposal. This is even though Democrats ensured an equal amount of Democrats and Republicans on the commission should it be approved. Also, some Republicans voted for that commission in the House, 35 to be exact. And it's not like Kevin McCarthy is incapable of talking about this issue with some directness. Right after the Capitol riot, he said this.
Most Americans want neither inaction nor retribution. They want durable, bipartisan justice. That path is still available, but is not the path we are on today. That doesn't mean the president is free from fault. The president bears responsibility for Wednesday's attack on Congress by mob rioters. He should have immediately denounced the mob when he saw what was unfolding. These facts require immediate action by President Trump. Accept his share of responsibility, quell the brewing unrest, and ensure President-elect Biden is able to successfully begin his term. And the president's immediate action also deserves congressional action, which is why I think a fact-finding commission and a censure resolution would be prudent. Unfortunately, that is not where we are today.
The fact of the matter is that Kevin McCarthy has chosen to switch his views on this. He's actively avoiding holding Trump responsible in the most basic sense. During that speech, he refused to consider impeachment in one of the worst security breaches in recent American history. And yet, on his most basic requirements, he refuses to do even that. How exactly is he upholding his oath of office when he doesn't even want to look at the issue in the first place? There is a clear necessity to investigate this and learn as much as possible to prevent it from happening again. Conveniently, Kevin McCarthy would not have to talk about the call he had with Trump during these riots if no commission took place. If Americans are to have a sense of peace about what happened on the day, then we need transparency. And the fact that the Republican leadership refuses to take responsibility for their members' role in this event speaks volumes about their party. It's an indictment against them. That'll be all for today. Thank you for joining me and listening. We will have more content for you today. We actually have a bonus episode in which I interview leftist streamer and YouTuber The Cavernacle, which is why you don't have as many stories today. If you would like to check it out, you will see it on any of the podcast apps today, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.